I shouldn't have yelled at you earlier. I'm sorry. I'm really frustrated with gaming right now.
I
That was a little
know.
bit. That was a little
I
bit excessive
know.
on my
I
part.
just kind of sat there and let it roll.
I
I know when you get spicy.
I get hot sometimes. I don't think I've gotten that hot with you about something like that. I apologize. That was a little bit too much. I mean, I think you're wholeheartedly wrong on everything, but I shouldn't have yelled at you. Like that's not fair to you.
It's all good.
Time to get your fix. It's a horrible gaming podcast. It's not good, it's not great. Horrible gaming podcast. It's not even what you would call fair. It's really not that good. Horrible Gaming Podcast.
Hello, my name is Zachariah with Old Man Gaming. You, dear listener, have chosen for whatever reason to listen to another horrible gaming podcast. I am not alone, and almost never am I alone. With me is...
It's Anil, aka Tiny Wizard.
That was a very old-timey radio sort of intro.
Yeah, every week it's different, and that's just what came to me.
Hey, Tiny Wizard here, coming to you from WKLPR, The Lips. Alright, so we're going to have a show today. We're not going to talk about the thing you think we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about other stuff.
We're not allowed to talk about it.
We're allowed to talk about it. I'm not saying it's like forbidden to talk about, but I'm not going to...
You straight up told me if I want to talk about it, I would have to do the show without you.
If you want to do the bulk of the show, yes, you're going to have to do it without me. I'm not saying we can't talk about it. We're definitely going to talk about it. It's just I'm not going to commit 90% of the podcast to something I have boycotted. I'm just not going to do it. So, that being said, we have to thank some people for making this podcast possible. And that would be, first, behind our ugly mugs, you're seeing a custom graphic that was provided by Mr. Mark Bell. We thank him for that. Of course, the theme song for this show and all of the shows here at OMG is provided by the man who makes the music, my brother, Nick Van Sliders. We thank him back for that. We will be right back with a talking point that Neil is apparently very upset about.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
That brings us to our first segment, our most important segment, hallowed ground as far as this podcast is concerned. That is fan interaction. Anybody who was confused, I wasn't saying we were skipping fan interaction. I was saying we would have the talking point at some point. But that's where we read the comments that you guys make in all the places that we can find them, that we remember to read them from. We respond to them. We talk to them. That's what we have. That's what we have as a smaller podcast, is the ability to speak directly with our 7 fans. So first, right off the bat, Jason. I have been playing Jacob. I saw his first ability, the Raven, and thought it was overwhelming. Turns out underwhelming. Turns out I use the Raven all the time. To the point, 95% of my skull points have gone to the Raven. I don't remember what skull points are in Redfall, but...
He probably meant skill points.
Oh,
the
yeah.
U and the I are right there, and they're spelled the same.
You know what? He gets the autocorrect gods come for him often. So, Jacob's the only one I haven't tried in the game. But I gotta be honest, I'm having a real hard time with that game. You guys will see when our show finally premieres, which I will talk to Neil about when that premiere date will be. But we have recorded the first session of Redfall Down, is what we're calling it. Myself, Neil, and Kayla all play Redfall. And it's rough. It's rough.
You know, not to like spoil anything, but I have to say, like, playing that game like alone was very snooze inducing.
Mm-hmm.
But when we played it together, just because of the stupid bullshit and shenanigans that occurred honestly, it was far and away way better.
Yeah, you even said it was reaching Sonic 06 heights for you.
Yeah, it definitely. I definitely am getting like nostalgic waves of Sonic 06 when I play it, which is, if you know anything and how I feel about that game, I love it because it's so goddamn broken and hilarious. So it's kind of like that.
Yeah, and we're not going to get any views when we finally premiere that show because that game's dead in the water already. But yeah, we're gonna definitely post it anyway because it is insane the level of stuff we deal with in that. Continuing on, Jason again. When I was in 5th grade, I was getting strep every week or two. After a couple months, the doctor was like, "Do you have pets?" Turns out my brother's dog was carrying the virus. Very fun. So, yeah, strep's easy to knock out. As you can tell, I am feeling much better and have been mostly better. Thankfully, my throat's good today. I actually was hoarse on Friday. But other than that, I started taking penicillin the Sunday right before I did the recording. And by midday Monday, I was feeling fine. Like, it gets knocked out fast, but it is super contagious and will stay on shit. So you have to, like, throw all your toothbrushes out. I have a buddy of mine. I was telling him we all had strep, and he was like, my kid got strep, like, 4 times in a row. We couldn't figure out why, and it was the toothbrush. The toothbrush kept giving.
That's crazy.
Giving him strep, yeah. So, stuff's nasty, man. Stuff's nasty. I did see this comment and looked at my dog like, I may have to kill you.
How dare you?
Jason then continues, I come out of the safe house all the time to find statues a lot, which is something we talk about. Every time I did die, I would end up in the safe house, and whatever killed me would get attached to my instance. So I'd come out of the safe house, and it would just be in the UV light of the safe house and die. This is ridiculous. Then William Owen, hi! Exclamation point. Man, that's quite the ordeal you're going through. It'll be over at some point. Let's just hope it'll be sooner than later. IGN gave it a 4. Lately, I've been playing, parentheses, and really, really liking Wanted Dead. And IGN gave it a 4. I saw that. They really didn't like that one. The review is so bad, it's like if someone reviewed Mario World without finding the jump button. Maybe Redfall is really bad. I don't know. It is. But one thing's for sure, I don't care about IGN. And honestly, I know it sucks, but nowadays you're always best to wait a month before buying a new game, as the first few weeks are almost always a mess. Thanks for the show. Hashtag try not to die. Well, I'm not dead. Yet, anyway. And yeah, that is a bummer. It is kind of a reality. I do want to point out, though, that reality is almost relegated to AAA studios. The big people who charge you lots of money, those are the guys who are an absolute buggy mess every time they release. The independent guys, there's definitely people who have those problems, but the independent guys tend to seem to have it locked down. My current game of the year is Age of Wonders 4. That game was just fine. Just fine like 3 days after release. So I think that that's what's sad, is the people charging the most money are the people giving us the worst quality product.
Yeah, a lot of the time it does seem to be that way.
Yeah, it really does. That's kind of how it feels. But yeah, that sucks. As far as the IGN review, I agree for the most part. I think there are a couple of reviewers, like I said, that I like. I also like to... I think one of the big problems is IGN is a leader in the market. It's a leader in the space. So it dictates a lot of mob mentality. So like when IGN says something's terrible, all of a sudden people start thinking it's terrible. And that's a bummer. It's a real bumper for games that aren't necessarily terrible or are specifically geared towards niches that IGN blasts. But I like to watch the IGN reviews, if for no other reason than to kind of see like collectively where that's gonna go. You know what I mean? And that is really sad. But I mean, IGN has already, I'm sure we'll talk about it at some point today, reviewed something I think falsely recently and gave it a 10 out of 10, which is of utter ridiculousness, just given the specs of the game. But IGN does what it thinks people want it to do with reviews. It blasts games that it thinks people will want it to blast, and it gives good reviews to games that it thinks people will want it to give good reviews to. Redfall, it felt like people were going to hate Redfall. That's why it got a 4. It didn't get a 4 necessarily because it was a bad game. And don't get me wrong, Redfall is rough. Real rough. But it got a 4 because IGN looked at the people and were like, okay, we're going to give this a 4. I still appreciate IGN coming out with that review in progress ahead of time before they actually gave it the 4, just to give people a chance to get their fucking money back on that train wreck. But same with Wanted Dead. They looked at what people were looking at, and that's why it got a low review.
Yeah, that's... I don't know. Like, it is definitely... I think it's a chicken and egg situation. Because it's like you said, like, a review will come out and it's, you know, a certain score. Like, okay, you know, they give it an 8. Whatever it would be, and people are like, oh yeah, you know, it's okay. Or, you know, maybe it's also them following the trends too, because there's actually one thing, one thing I point to in these sorts of situations is someone like, back when Breath of the Wild came out, Jim Sterling gave it a 6, and the entire community just assaulted, like, all in one go, just like onslaught, just coming to the defense of the game and this, that, and the other. Like, oh, like, how dare you give this game only a 6? Everyone else gives it such high scores. So I think it's a little bit of column A and column B of, yeah, they are dictating people's thoughts on things, but at the same time, they might be afraid to give something a different review otherwise.
I think they run the metrics. I think that's what they do. I think because they've even pointed it out in articles, like the Redfall article, one of the articles even pointed out that, like, the view count on content for it was low even before it came out. I feel like they track the metrics on the game. They know what people are interested in and what people are positive about because they're the center of gaming media as it is. And then I think once they know, oh, the people are going to like this game, we're going to give it a good review. Like, that's how they do things. And same with Redfall. They knew that people were already skeptical about Redfall. People's interest in Redfall was already low, so they knew they could attack it and bash it. And that's what they did. I think they did the opposite with just about all their 10 out of 10 games. Because the 10 out of 10 games, I'm not saying any of them are necessarily bad off the rip. But they're all games that are specifically expected to be 10 out of 10 games. None of them going into it were expected to be anything less by anybody other than me. Like, or maybe Jim Sterling. Like, they weren't, like, God of War was not expected to be lower than a 10. You know, the Tears of the Kingdom, expected to be a 10. Breath of the Wild, expected to be a 10. By the mass at large. And I think that they run their metrics. They watch their metrics. They watch what people view. They watch what people look for. They watch what people say, because they also have a lot of comments on IGN. IGN is a very comment-heavy app. You log into it. I don't have an actual login, but I can see the comments. I think they watch those, and then they know how to write the review based off that, which is, again, an evil way of doing a review, but I feel that's how they do things.
Yeah, very well could be.
Then back to Jason. I really want to like Redfall, and I am mostly having fun, but it seems like they had a good game going, then they lost their dev team and had to bring noob devs in to finish it. Hold on, I gotta click a button here. Twice now I've completed a mission, only to not have it actually complete. I had to quit to main menu and go back in and complete the mission again. Vampires occasionally load in as a phantom. They ignore me and take no damage, but still go about their business otherwise. The AI is very, very bizarre. Usually the enemies are dumb as rocks, then occasionally a group will be tactical geniuses. Buttons stop working every now and then, mostly the B and 3 lines button I noticed. I have to quit the entire game and reload it. Vampires outside the nests are super easy. The ones in the nests are so numerous I die 50 times in a nest. I still haven't found a nest, honestly. Most of the technical issues other than that seem to be PC issues, and I've played on xCloud and Series X. The game needed another I don't know how long to finish. And yeah, I think that's a big problem. I think one of the things about Redfall... there's a lot I don't understand about Redfall. I don't understand why they did this to themselves, you know? If you wanted to move to a different project, you didn't like this game, scrap the game and move on. I don't understand why they would want to take this kind of hit in this kind of situation, and I certainly don't understand why Phil Spencer hung them out to dry afterwards. There's definitely been even some dev backlash from that. There's been some Twitter posts from actual head creative devs being like, I don't understand why everybody's attacking us for this game. Everybody fails, like to other devs, you know. And I think that it's definitely an ugly situation, to say the least. And I don't see the logic or merit in releasing this game when they did, or how they did.
Yeah, I think it really was one of those things to where somebody within Microsoft was just like, we have to put something out because of what we talked about, you know, Microsoft's, you know, first party, the lack of real solid first party, quote unquote, reasons to have an Xbox or reasons to have Game Pass, which we've beat that conversation to death. But there's this perception that, you know, no new first party games, no massive first party games coming out, you know, right now everything hinges on Starfield at this point. It was Redfall. They were putting all their eggs in Redfall's basket. But I mean, even before that, the big launch title, Halo Infinite. All of the marketing went towards Halo Infinite, and then surprise, it showed up a year after the console launch. And then we're like, well, you know, Starfield, you know, is going to be the next big thing. But with Redfall's failure at this point, everybody's scared shitless of what Starfield is going to look like.
Well, and that's the thing. Like, you know, you look at the way, like, the aftermath of this, and we've had now a few weeks post Redfall release. Like, when we first talked about it, it was kind of like, oh, Phil Spencer kicked in the door. I'm getting pressure from Microsoft. We've got to put out a AAA game, right? But at the same time, if that's the case, then you would think the logic would be, okay, it's in a buggy state. Release it anyway. We'll fix it and we'll take the hits. But that hasn't been how they've played it. They've released it and immediately like abandon it. And like what I don't understand is, why did we sacrifice it? It almost feels like the aftermath of this feels like we killed Redfall in the public for a reason. What reason? Like, the only thing it does, just like you said, it hurts the credibility of Starfield, because not only is this an Xbox exclusive game that came out that sucked, but it's also a Bethesda game. I mean, it's Arcane Studios, but it's from Bethesda. They're the same people publishing Starfield. So, like, it hurts Starfield's credibility. It hurts Microsoft's credibility already, because every exclusive game you've released has been a train wreck. I mean, they're very few, but each one that you've actually released has been an absolute train wreck, other than, like, Hi-Fi Rush.
Right.
Which is a AA throwaway game. No offense to Hi-Fi Rush. It's a very good game. I don't mean throwaway like it's bad. I mean, you play it for 5 hours and then you're done, you know? I think that, like, I don't understand the logic behind putting this game out. I don't understand who this helped, or what purpose this served, to be honest. Especially given how because I don't like Phil. He's obviously shown his true colors in the last 2 years as a douchebag. But at the same time, he doesn't necessarily love to give up on games. he tends to stick with them, and he also tends to be of the mind of putting out a good. He wants to pull out a good quality product at least. The thing is we have Redfall comes out in this condition, and then immediately it's like they're not even working on that anymore. Like that's done. Like
yeah, and I think we should bring up too the fact that we talked about this a little bit side conversation the other day. I don't know if you had it as an odds and ends or not, but Arcane's already moved on to their next project. Like there's job postings and everything for their next thing. There's been not a peep from them as to what their plans are for updates, even, any game anymore within a week of launch has a roadmap associated with it. We've not seen a single thing of that. No acknowledgement of it being in a rough state outside of Phil Spencer, pointing it out.
They're not even fixing it for the PC people.
Right, like Arcane needs to do something unless this is a huge, this would be an absolute bombshell if this is what the case would be. Unless it's already in the cards for some sort of consolidation, in the tech sector right now, there's a lot of consolidation, layoffs, everything like that. What if Arcane Austin is just on the chopping block?
Well, if it's on the chopping block, then you put them there. Because you didn't give them a chance to make a proper game. And then you pushed it out, and then you blame them for everything. So, if you then cut them, it's kind of like you manufactured their destruction. I mean, that's highly possible. I would not put it past Microsoft or Xbox at all. It's just, would you really release a game to just have a reason to shut down a studio? Wouldn't you just shut down the studio? Do you want bad press on top of bad press? Because that's what we're doing here. I don't strategically see the point of this game is a buggy mess, because there's no way. There's just no way they didn't know this game worked this badly. Here's
tinfoil hat.
Okay, hit me.
On this one. The reason that I'm
usually the one with the crazy theories, so I'd love to hear
If it is that they were going to shut down Arcane Austin, I think the reason that they did not pass it off is because the optics of everything would be, okay, well, they passed off a finished project to another company and then shut to another, division within Bethesda/Arcane, shut them down, so they did all the work and they don't get any of the credit this other people do. I think it might be a calculated move to be like, yeah, okay, we put this game out, it's not great, and then Microsoft gets to come along and do it's really unfortunate that we have to make this decision, but given the quality of the game that was put out. If you compare those two scenarios, the optics of the latter is much more acceptable by the public.
I think that, I guess I see what you're saying. But at the same time, if that was the plan, I feel like that kind of backfired on him. Because right now, it literally looks like they kicked Arcane Austin off a cliff and then blamed them for falling off the cliff. And that, to me, looks... Because now not to mention the fact, now you've got a game out there that sucks. That nobody's fixing, that nobody's making better. And that
nobody's really playing, to be honest. I mean, we've just got done talking about a bunch of us are playing it, but there's already articles that it's hemorrhaging daily players.
It hurts me that it's taking up 100 gigs of my hard drive right now, honestly. No, I'm not going to lie to you. It hurts me because I got to keep it on there for the series, but it's I'm never going to play that outside the series because nobody's even... I would play it outside the series. They're not even fixing the technical issues. You're not even fixing you're not even making this a working game. You sold a $70 game that was broken, and you're not fixing it. You're just sit and spin. It's kind of fucked up, but we spent a lot of time on this. Let's continue. Asylum66 then jumps in. I'm not going to kick a horse while it's down. I also believe Xbox is to blame for this puppy. Love how they, parentheses, Xbox, blamed the devs for everything, which is just what we talked about. They really, really screwed Arcane over, in my opinion. If I was Arcane, I would be regretting being purchased by Xbox. That's 100%. Jason then chimes in, I don't need hyper-realistic graphics. I'm currently playing Dismantle every day. Everybody keeps talking about how good Dismantle is. I'm going to have to try that one at some point. Yeah, neither do I, Jason. Just give me a good game. I don't want good graphics. I actually actively don't want good graphics, because the minute I start seeing trailers with good graphics, I start thinking this game's going to be broken. Like, nowadays, it feels like the better the graphics, the more broken it is on release. I don't want that. I want a good game, period. And I'm much more interested in systems. Like, when somebody, like, it's like, we're going to do this system that's different. You know, like procedural generation or extreme customization, stuff like that. I'm much more interested in things like that nowadays than graphics. Graphics don't do it for me. Then finally, Jason finishes it off with this comment that I don't quite know what he's referring to. Maybe it's Xbox? Dude, no, definitely it's Xbox/Microsoft. This is part of why I hate corporate conglomeration. I'm not exactly sure what you're talking about, but Xbox sucks. That's what I'm going to chime in. As a company, they suck. All the gaming companies suck, though. Like, every one of them. They suck. They're taking advantage of us, and they're screwing us over, and it just gets worse and worse and worse by the day, which is what makes this podcast so hard to do sometimes. And we will finish by talking about what we're not talking about today, and that is Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. And I believe Neil is slightly salty that we are not talking about this, because I know he's playing it, and I know he's liking it, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is mass hysteria that this game isn't screwing people over. I got nothing but salt for this game. This game is too big for your fucking original hard drive. They didn't fix a lot of stuff in it, and it does look exactly more of the same. I have watched it. They didn't bring anything to the table that I think is relatively worth the $70 price tag on that thing. And it certainly bothers me to the core that it got a 10 out of 10, and none of the reviews consider any of the things that I just said. They don't consider price. They don't consider the storage requirement. They don't consider any of that. And that bothers me. What good is a review if it's going to give a 10 out of 10 to a game that raised its price for no reason and is technically ridiculous?
So, with all of that said, I mean, from playing it myself, though, it definitely, it is an extra $10, but I feel the $10 is worth it in this situation.
It's ridiculous.
Because what they have done is they have taken the standard map as it was and effectively tripled it.
Oh, they added more to the same game? Okay, cool. What I said they were going to do? So, cool. $10 more? Cool.
There's new systems in it. There's a lot of quality of life improvements. If they were to try to make this as a DLC, then it would be physically impossible to fit on the console.
Okay, it shouldn't be $10 more than a game. It certainly shouldn't be $10 more when they are literally forcing you to buy an SD cartridge with your fucking console, man.
I mean,
I'm
not
sorry.
necessarily.
This ups. No. Bottom line, it should not be $10 more, Neil. They are not giving you anything more other than the fact that you have to buy more data for it. The graphics aren't better. There is no, like, HD or 4K or any of that bullshit, and I don't go in for it, but that's the whole reason those other games are $10 more. So don't tell me for a fucking second that $10 should be there because the map's bigger. That's fucking asinine and ridiculous. Especially since that map being bigger only adds to what you have to pay to play the game in the first place.
The game itself is 16.3 gigabytes. Your standard Switch console is 32, so it does take up half of the storage on that. For the OLED Switch, it does give you a little bit more wiggle room.
Okay.
But from what I have played, from what I have experienced on it, it is, of course, a brand new story. Sure, they used some of the same aspects of the map by using what already existed there.
Yep.
But they also expanded with new systems, new abilities. There's the whole building mechanic. Your abilities have completely changed to change how you look at puzzles and, come at
All
things.
stuff that is expected from a sequel.
Exactly.
And no sequel charges $10 more. That's what I'm saying, man. And if you're about to counter if you're about to counter me, that is because they are on newer systems. That was the whole thing about that, is that they're on the next gen. There's no next gen for Switch. This is a fucking sequel on the same console. You don't charge me $10 more for that. And if you don't want to be pissed about that, that's fine. Let Nintendo fuck you over. But everybody out there who isn't pissed about that, you're letting Nintendo fuck you over. It's that simple. I'm sorry to be so militant about this, but I am so sick of coming onto this podcast every fucking week and watching the same dumb decisions from every consumer out there. That we are putting up with this. We're putting up with this treatment of us. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. These companies just rake us over the coals. We don't get anything out of it, and then we talk about it mad for a couple of minutes, and then when it comes out, it's like all's forgiven because the map's a little bit bigger. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. This should not be $10 more. It shouldn't be. Do you understand why I didn't want to talk about this now?
Well, I mean, to be fair, you're the one who wanted to talk about it after you said you didn't want to talk about it.
You were salty. We weren't talking about it.
I let it go. I didn't... Normally, whenever we talk about a game like this or something that you don't want to talk about, we'll talk about it in the off the second I jump in. But I let it go because I knew it was going to turn into something like this.
Okay.
At the end,
all right.
At the end of
Put
everything,
it on me. That's fine.
At the end of everything, it boils down to this. Just like any other thing that whenever we spend money on something is, do you think it's worth it? I personally think it's worth the $70. That's just my own personal opinion from what I have seen, what I've played, what I've experienced with it.
Okay, well, I won't insult your personal opinion.
But I'm not going to sit here and say it's the most perfect game that ever existed. It does struggle under the hardware, for sure. I've noticed a couple frame rate dips when there's stuff happening. Especially when there was one point I was doing one of the shrines. One of the things that you're able to do in this game, of course, is to just like build stuff. I was in the process of attempting to build a bridge to get across just like this huge body of water that I wasn't going to be able to swim across because of the current associated with it. So I did take it was somewhere in the end around 18 logs and put them end to end to end. And it's definitely not how you were supposed to solve the puzzle, but it's how I did it. But when you put all of them together and I went to go lift everything up to put it where it needed to be, that it did bog down a little bit. One of the reviews did say, and I wholeheartedly agree with this, it makes you want a Switch Pro more. I think I would have been okay with this game coming out as what they've done with a lot of Zelda games in the past is made it a split generation thing, like the swan song for one console and the first for another. But at the end of the day, like I said, I'm enjoying it. I think it's worth the price tag, personally, but my own personal opinion.
Okay. So there you guys go. That's Fan Interaction. We are today, however, going to talk about ChatGPU, GPT. It's a big deal. There is a lot of mods and other stuff coming out. There's a lot of people talking about it. It's a highly evolved AI system that basically you ask it questions and it gives you really in-depth answers, which makes me believe at some point it's going to Terminator us, but that being said, it's a very interesting thing. People are really talking about it becoming a big deal in gaming. So I kind of wanted to discuss that today. So now that I'm super pissed off, we're going to take a little break and then come back and talk about it.
Yeah.
All right.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, everybody. ChatGPT is really interesting stuff, okay? Because basically this is like a hyper AI that can basically make content for people. And I have kind of like mixed feelings on ChatGPT, in my opinion, but there's a lot of cool stuff coming out of it. A lot of game developers are talking about it because basically what it could do is it could take your game and it can make it very, very much like a new world. My biggest thing that I'm excited for is somebody's already working on a mod for Skyrim because, of course, Skyrim. Skyrim has to get all the mods first. They're working on this mod for Skyrim where basically ChatGPT will just give NPCs, all the NPCs of the world, huge, in-depth backstories that basically make them real people that do real things. It's this kind of stuff that has me kind of intrigued as far as the gaming goes. I think that like open world gaming is some of the gaming that I find really fun, especially the stuff that's very sandboxy. But one of the things that suffers in that area is the fact that oftentimes your NPCs kind of feel like placeholders or traffic cones. You know, they don't feel like fleshed out characters. It's my biggest problem with No Man's Sky. I love No Man's Sky. You can do so much in No Man's Sky, but the characters other than you just feel like talking heads that you get missions from or you learn words from. They're not like real things that like go to war and like chase you down and like, you know, stuff like that. Whereas this could really give that life to these kind of games, these kind of big sandboxy games, and really allow you to live in a world that is not your own. There are some downsides to it, but I want to take in your points about what do you think about it, man?
So first, have you used ChatGPT for anything at all?
I have not, and the reason I have not is the negative thing I want to talk about, but I want to see where you're going before I go to the negative thing.
So, I have used ChatGPT for a lot of different things.
Okay.
When it first kind of really started taking off, it was a lot more fun, to be honest. Because one of the things that I did, like I asked it stupid things, many stupid things. And one of my favorite things that was just like, wow, this can be used for so much was, I had it write me an inspirational speech about Thanos.
That's a good one.
I didn't know what I was going to get as a result. And that was what it gave me was just pure gold. It was about determination, willpower, and resolve in like hard times and everything, and just doing what you need to do to get the job done. I'm like, shit. Like, I wish I would have screenshotted the result on that. Because, I mean, now it is a bit more neutered. The darker side of ChatGPT, I'm not sure if you've paid attention to the news and stuff like that. Like,
some of it.
There's been a ton of different. Everyone's got their own AI chatbot thing now, and like there's some of them that are like. There was a news story that had the chatbot trying to get the guy doing the story on it to leave his wife. Like there's just a bunch of crazy stuff. Like when I first heard about it, I thought it was a joke, but it was like, no, it was like in the New York Times. So it was like real shit. That said, all of that stupid shit, it definitely has a lot of potential to do things. It especially in like the gaming space. Yeah. Even just like you were mentioning about like giving characters backstories and stuff. It can even do light coding.
Yeah.
There are people who are unfortunately writing malicious code with ChatGPT.
All right, so sorry about that, everybody. I don't even know if I'll be able to put any bonuses in because of that, but basically my computer decided to do a 180 fuckaroo off a cliff for about 10 seconds. And really what it boils down to is Microsoft. Microsoft decided to try and sneak in on AMD Radeon and it blocked it, and then my entire computer fell apart because that's how Microsoft rolls. It breaks things.
But like very much after the fact.
Yeah, my computer's been running all day, everybody. That's just so you know. I have played games today. I have edited things today. I have exported and uploaded things today. But for some reason, mid podcast, it was like your driver's going to stop. Yeah, no more Graphics card for you. We're done. So
Graphics card.
That's what. That's the Microsoft is the Graphics card right there. All right, so back into the ChatGPT. Yes, it definitely has some dark sides. I actually, personally, my negative about it is because I know a guy who has used it for like story stuff on his tabletop RPG, and I think that's really cool. Yes. How well it can do stuff like that. He also like kind of asked it about certain card games and stuff, and it actually like basically designed a card game for him. But this is where the negative for me comes in, because where does our creativity become co-opted by the computer at that point? I think he thought I was judging him, which I wasn't, because I was like, I don't use it. I won't use it because what's the point at that point? And he was like, what do you mean? And basically I was like, look, you like the story didn't come from you at this point. It came from ChatGPT. Mm-hmm. So I'm not really, like, if I'm using that as a game master, then I'm not really game mastering anymore. But then you can add that into other stuff. Like right now, I could go on to ChatGPT and ask it to design my next role-playing game. Mm-hmm. I could then take that, whatever it designs, I can expound on what it gives me, and I can literally publish that under my company as my own work. I don't like that. that level of like loss of creativity. Like, I love it in the space where it's like allowing games to be more in depth, because nobody, like, No Man's Sky is a procedural generationathon, you know, where like there's hundreds of thousands of things going on in that game at any one time and nothing at the same time. So ChatGPT is perfect for that because no programmer could keep up with that. But like in the space of like other stuff, it gets real tricky, you know?
Yeah, so in regard to like what you were talking about, like the creativity and everything like that, I don't know how much you know about how these chat bots, these large generative models and like image generators and stuff like that work. They're all trained on a database of pre-existing things.
Right.
So at the end of the internet day, So at the end of the day, not only is it not necessarily creating something, but it is also an amalgamation of other people's actual works.
Now,
and
in fairness, I mean, the art thing is a different discussion, but in fairness, as far as stories and content goes, everything's an amalgamation of somebody else's work at this point.
Yeah, and of course, and at this point too, like, we're having a conversation of nothing other than ethics. So I mean, it's a different conversation for a different podcast. But like, just like getting back to like that kind of separating, like, it helps to know that part of it to get into why it would be good for gaming. Like you said, with procedural generation is like a very bastardized version of an AI model, basically, because it's the same sort of thing. It's throw together X, Y, and Z based off of 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
It's the same exact situation. So
it's just a much smaller, more refined scale.
Precisely.
Right.
So I can absolutely see a future within the next 10 to 15 years where people build not just game engines, but AI engines, to where they don't even have to necessarily program the stuff. They say, well, here's a model of a tree. Here's a texture. Here's a this. Here's a that. When character enters X area, generates a scene based off of this, and this, based off of their previous decision in the last level, something along those lines. And from there, that's when you perfectly marry together the AI, the idea of an AI and procedural generation. Because then at that point, with what we've seen with large language models, it seems like legit, like in some cases, like an actual human being has touched what it is and is like you're having a conversation with a person or somebody actually did something. Because one of the problems that I have with procedural generation is it gets to be very like you see a lot of the same patterns of stuff. And you can almost call sometimes what's going to happen based off of, you know, what you've seen or what you're heading down the path of. So at that point, procedural generation is nothing but a means to an end, not necessarily you going through an experience, so to speak.
Well, and really good procedural generation is the stuff where you see it less and less and less. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like you can predict it less and less. That's how good that when you get that good procedural generation. But no matter how good the procedural generation is, like you go into a new area and you're like, okay, I kind of know what's coming. There's going to be different aspects of it, which keep it fresh, which is what I like about it. But you're going to kind of see the same stuff. This definitely gives the potential to really expound on that. And as far as the ethics of using ChatGPT, I don't ethically, I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody basically being like, hey, design a role-playing game for me, and then producing it. It's just, for me, it's more of a, why are you doing it? You know what I mean? Like, what are you getting out of that at that point? It takes away your, I don't want to say license. It's like if you don't put if you don't put the work in, what what is it at that point? I mean, we march ever closer to the singularity, right? Where like everything is just done by robots for us.
Everything is Taco Bell.
That's the actual singularity. I like that.
And I can make that reference now.
Yes, you can. Welcome. I think that it's really interesting to think about too, and it is interesting on the level of like you know from doing this podcast as long with me how excited I am about procedural generation. Like, it just, the minute somebody says it, I'm very interested to see what they're procedurally generating and how good the procedural generation is and like what it's in reference to and what they're doing with it, you know? So when I hear this in relation to that, I get really excited, but it's kind of weird to think that then I get like a real icky feeling when I think I could procedurally generate my game, you know, or like my next story or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just why that line is drawn in my head, I don't know. So ethically, I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with it. It's just, it's a real weird place to be. As far as games go, though, I'm all for it. And just like I was saying before we got cut off with the No Man's Sky, one thing I've said in No Man's Sky forever is I wish that the universe interacted with you as much as you interact with it. Like, there's so much to do in No Man's Sky, and they just keep adding stuff, and it's a great game. But the negative is that you are always the player. You're always the initiator. Everything that happens in it happens because you decide that it happens right then and there. The game never comes after you. And, like, you could be, like, with the exception of the Sentinels, which are kind of like this all force of like, you did a bunch of bad stuff, it comes after you. But like, I would love to like fly into a new universe, and have two factions at war, you know? I would love to like have a starfight with somebody, kill somebody, and then his brother come after me. You know, that level of interactivity is possible with ChatGPT. And like the Skyrim mod is kind of boasting some of that as well. Which, that's really exciting to me, especially in the area of taking older games and adding this to them. I think that's really exciting to me. It's like a really exciting prospect as far as in-depth gaming goes, you know?
Yeah, I definitely think there are some games that are more predisposed to it working better than others. So, like, obviously an RPG, something like that, something slower paced, I don't think you'd be able to incorporate, like, Doom Eternal
No.
with some sort of AI generation, because then you'd just be kind of wonky for sure.
I think
But
this
at the
really
same-
speaks to open worlds and procedural generated worlds much more than anything else.
For sure, yeah. But I mean, at the same time, though, what I was going to say, I mean, it is possible too that, like, you take a look at something like Call of Duty Zombie Mode. That is prime, absolutely prime for something like that.
Yeah.
To where you just go into that same exact map, and it would just be like, oh, well, this time when you go to, like, you maybe can't go to this area to turn the power on to be able to get to this other section of the map first. Maybe for some reason you have to go over here to do, it's almost like a randomizer thing. But then the waves of the zombies could be procedurally generated as well with like AI. AI definitely opens the door. And I feel like there is this misconception right now too that where we're at, that AI is just going to be the next big thing that's going to go away, just like the metaverse. Because to be completely honest, I don't know if you've seen too, the metaverse is basically dead at this point.
Was it ever really alive? That's
thing,
what we'll ask
really
about.
Alive. We had 3 Facebook commercials that was hyping it up to be like the biggest thing ever. And I think Facebook now is completely shutting down their metaverse, or at least suspending their metaverse development.
Just stop making those
right
workers do fucking meetings in virtual reality when they're in the same room. Just stop doing that to them, please.
Well, here's the thing. It was an idea without an audience. I feel like is what the problem was.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, sure, it was some pie in the sky shit. Yeah, it would be cool if, but we didn't have the technology for that.
Yeah.
But we have the technology for something like ChatGPT and generative AI, and we have some actual use for it. I mean, like I said, I've used mine from everything to writing stupid stories about Thanos to even right now in the break, I tried to have ChatGPT write a joke about installing drivers. It didn't go well. But all the way to I've used it for homework. And then, of course, you have to double check it against actual Google searches because,
you don't want to get plagiarized.
Not necessarily. Yeah. Well, it's not just that, but like to make sure that it's actually giving you correct information.
Right.
But I mean, that's a difference too in the type of AI, because we have it everywhere now. For shit's sake, it's built into Snapchat for some unknown reason. Why? Who knows? Yeah. But it's there. Everyone's putting it in stuff, and it's getting more and more usage, more and more traction.
Yeah.
I think it's just a matter of time before it makes its way to gaming.
I think it's definitely. I think the gaming space is already. I mean, they're already co-opting it in mods. If the independent guys are already using it for that, then the AAA guys are already thinking about like how can we make more money off this. Especially since I don't think it's gonna really cost them a lot to incorporate it into the game, but it's going to make them more money because they're going to be able to make games that really attract players more to it.
And
I
cut
think
down on development time.
It will. I mean, if you're using it for that, but it will, because you could just be like, well, we're going to give all the NPCs characters based on ChatGPT instead of like having them be programmed or whatever. It doesn't necessarily lend itself to certain forms of narrative, but I will say, you're talking about Doom Eternal, which there's not a ton of use in Doom Eternal, but what if ChatGPT was able to be worked into how Doom told the story to you, like how the game progressed? Then all of a sudden you're getting a different Doom experience every time you're playing. I think that you could also the whole, I know this is kind of silly and most of our audience will laugh at me, but the visual novel / romance sort of genre that exists would really benefit from ChatGPT, because you could make all those like characters fleshed out and you could make so many more than were in there before, It's a very interesting time. I think that, again, we got to be careful with the co-opting creativity, but I don't think it's going away. I think this is definitely something that we're going to see added, at least to games, because it's a feature that can just be readily accessible to all of them, So,
Yeah.
all right, well, I think we covered this. Unless there's anything else you want to add, buddy, we could go to odds and ends.
I do not believe so.
All right, we have no idea how long the episode is now, ladies and gentlemen. It could be the shortest one we've ever done, could be the longest because of the hiccup. But we are going to go to odds and ends, and we'll be right back.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, so brings us to odds and ends, our last segment that is smaller, little topics we want to talk to you guys about. We don't necessarily want to give them the full talking points. But yeah, we just want to let you know about them, talk about them, whatever. Neil's only got 2. I actually got 4 right now, so I guess I'll start us off.
Alrighty.
All right, first one's an old one. You probably already know about this, but we haven't done odds and ends in like 2 weeks, I think, or something like that. Or maybe 1 week. I don't. We definitely didn't do it last week.
We didn't do it last week. So yeah, it's actually this is
2 weeks.
This will be 2 weeks. Yeah.
GP Game Pass has a referral system now, where whatever your Game Pass level is, you can refer it to 14 friends. I do want to put a little caveat on it because I thought it was Game Pass Ultimate. It is not. It is whatever you have. So I only have Game Pass PC, which means I can only refer Game Pass PC. Neil knows exactly the undertow of what that is, which is a real bummer because now I have to try and figure out what that Wi-Fi chip is. But yeah. So so if you have a friend who's not on Games Pass, you can chuck them a referral. It's a 14-day referral that they get to play on. Nice quick.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, unfortunate given your situation.
Yes.
With that there, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely cool. I do think that Microsoft did have to do something like this because Game Pass is definitely approaching almost like I feel like a Netflix sort of situation to where you're going to hit your critical mass. And then from there, it's not about gaining people, it's about retaining people. But they're in the gaining people, the early or the late phases of the gaining more subscribers.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that shakes out there in the future. I do think it's very interesting regarding Game Pass. Phil Spencer basically teased before the holidays last year that after the holidays there was going to be a price increase. And we've heard zero about that, and we are now almost halfway through the year.
I have a tinfoil hat about this Game Pass referral.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Because remember the CMA thing going on.
Right.
The biggest thing they dinged him on was that they were going to raise the price of Game Pass. And then all of a sudden we get a referral.
Yeah.
Which it almost feels like, well, we can't raise the price now because of the CMA thing. So let's start throwing referrals out and hope that we get people in that way.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's kind of my little... it's a miniature tinfoil hat, just on the front.
A small tinfoil hat, just like a gum wrapper's worth of tinfoil.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of feel like that was... Because I feel like probably right about now is when we'd be experiencing that price hike.
Unless they have something that they're going to roll out during the quote-unquote E3 time next month.
Yeah, but would you really want to do a price hike during your E3 time show? You wouldn't. You would want to do that down low stealth and then assuage... So here's my thought process, is that you'd want to announce before your big show the price hike, because that's the downside. So everybody gets mad at you, and then next week you're like, Fable's coming out, and then you bury it. So like, I feel like they don't want to show you that. That's why I feel like right about now is when they'd be doing that price increase, but they really can't because of the CMA thing. So you kind of get into this weird situation with, are we getting these referrals to like try and just get people more on the surface?
Since we're bringing it up now,
yeah, sure. Let's do it.
This is not one of my odds, but I mean, this is one of the things that I should have written it down. So like there was that other article that I had sent you about it looked like they were primed to clear, like that they had completely changed their mind and that they were primed to clear the deal, but they in fact made their official ruling at this point on the deal. And they have further prevented Activision, Blizzard, and Microsoft from buying stock into each other for any reason. It needs approved by the EU at this point.
That it is correct. The CMA has stopped them. They actually hired... And also, just side note, UK, way to make everything sound cool. Like, everything sounds cooler in the UK. And maybe it's because I'm from America, but, like, the fact that their lawyers are called barristers, not lawyers. Barrister, way cooler word. And then, like, the guy that they hired to do this, I'm going to butcher his name because I don't remember his actual name, but he is Lord Daniel Prenegwyn Kingscourt. That is his title as a barrister. And I'm just like... That's what the fuck. That's like Lord
Sounds
of the
like
Rings.
a villain.
Yes, Lord Daniel Pennequin, Kingscourt shall represent you. So it sounds really cool. But yeah, they hired the Queen's lawyer. I think it was like some old case with royalty. Like that's who they hired to deal with this. And like, yeah, CMA's doubled down. And I personally, those articles that keep coming out that you've sent me a couple of times, I'm starting to feel like Microsoft is floating those rumors out to try and oh, it's gonna clear. Tell everybody it's gonna clear, and CMA's like, no, it's not. It's really not. Fuck them. So that's really interesting. All right, so moving on. We'll stay with Xbox since that's what we're on right now. And this is definitely an old one. I'm sure you know about this already. I know Neil does. I'm sure everybody out there does, but. Xbox is doing an Xbox Direct / Starfield Direct on June 11th. So it will be.
I won't be able to see it. I won't be able to see it till like a week after.
June 11th. Well, I don't think I'll be home either. I think I'll be on vacation as well. Basically, it is going to be the first half of the show is going to be Xbox exclusive games, all three of them. That are coming out, and then the next hour is just going to be about Starfield. It's basically hailed as their E3 show. I don't think I'm off base in saying that's what that's supposed to be. So June 11th is when we're going to hear about more information, and really, if they are going to delay Starfield again, that's when we'll get that delay.
Yeah, I'm gonna put it out there now. It's gonna be a 30 frames at launch with an update to 60 later. And I do think it might get another delay. I think they're scared shitless at this point. I don't think it'll be anything crazy. I think they'll move it to November.
We shall see. I think that 30 frames definitely is something. I mean, if the game dies, though, we've now seen that they don't stick with games because we're definitely never going to get that. Yeah, we're never going to get that 60 frames per second upgrade to Redfall. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it'd be interesting because with everything that they did with the stickers on the boxes about 30 frames at launch, but the box is still having the. Having the 60 frames a second on there, I think they might have a suit.
Yeah. I mean, I can't believe that somebody hasn't filed a suit. I know you only have two, but I'm just going to go ahead with the next one because it's relevant.
Totally fine.
They also did the ESRB rating for Starfield.
God. Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Did you see it? I'm guessing by your laughing.
Yes, I read them.
So
I read the lines.
Just for everybody out there, ESRB ratings are crazy because basically what they do is they give you an ESRB rating of like, what it's rated for, T for teen and M for mature or whatever. But then they have to justify why it's that. And they don't have like a specific, I guess, document for it. Instead, they just list the reasons, no matter how crazy or insane they are. We did this with Cyberpunk back in the day, where it was like you could mess with the size of their junk and stuff like that. With this one, it is quoted as saying there are crazy lines after very in-depth sexual scenes with swear words in it, and then they quoted one of the lines as being, "Next time we should try it with the jetpacks off." So, so at some point in Starfield, you're gonna be able to have jetpack sex. And can I say something that is terrible about me? That actually made me more excited for the game.
I was reading those lines to I was reading those lines to Kayla. I think one of them was just like a generic talk about seeing stars. Wow. It's just like, what in the actual shit, man?
Oh my god. Yeah, that's one thing. Aside from the sci-fi connotations, I don't think one of those sexual lines are something that I have said to or had said to me after sex with any partner that I've ever had. Like, they're the most cliche.
Or would consider to be a good thing to say, considered context.
Right. Like, it is just the worst lines. Oh. Okay, well, I only have one left now, so I kind of motored through mine. Oh, so you want me to do it? Are you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, all right. So Ubisoft did some surprise layoffs. This was a real bummer. There's layoffs everywhere, but a lot of the layoffs are like people get the heads up at least a little bit in advance. Ubisoft just basically called in like, I don't know, something like 100, I think, like 40 to 100 employees in customer service, no less, and just called them in and were like, "This is your last day. Go pack your stuff up and leave." So they weren't given any heads up, any notice whatsoever. They didn't know it was coming. They just canned them. And then Ubisoft released a weird Twitter statement about how they're refining the process to make customer service better for the people involved. So let me get this straight. You've cut back the amount of people in customer service, and that's going to make it better for the customers? I don't think so, guys. That's
it's pretty
hard line.
Chatbots. It's just gonna be chatbots.
Pretty hard line to ride there.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's real shitty, real bullshitty. And I gotta say out there, I'm not predicting anything, but I will say this: if anybody out there is excited for any Ubisoft game coming to any console, grain of salt, man.
If there is actually going to be an Ubisoft game coming to a console anytime soon.
That's what I'm
saying. To be fair.
I don't think there's... I'm starting to think there's not going to be an Ubisoft. So, like, I think that you should really temper your expectations on any future Assassin's Creed games, if that's something you're still excited about, or hell...
Isn't there supposed to be one coming out this year?
Yeah, Black Flag. Or Skull and Bones. Sorry, Skull and Bones.
No, Assassin's Creed.
Yes, the Mirage one. Assassin's Creed Mirage. It's supposed to be... I want to say winter, it's supposed to be. But that's the next one.
We'll see, I guess.
I do not believe in Ubisoft as a company right now. I believe that they keep showing us trailers, but not actually showing us games. If you look at their actual releases compared to the amount of games that they are supposedly working on, the amount of games they're supposedly working on is about 4-1 for games that they've released in the last 2 years, without a doubt. I think they only released 2 games last year, and one of them was that Roller Champions that has already failed. I think that they are hemorrhaging, and like every one of their shows us 2 or 3 new games. But
they can't finish the shit they've started from 3 years ago.
We don't from fucking 10 years ago. You got Beyond Good and Evil and Skull and Bones. Production. Yeah, Skull and Bones is fucking what 6-7 years at this point. I
remember living in an entirely different state. When that was announced.
Yeah. So, I don't think that we are in a situation where... I'm really nervous that Ubisoft is going to be a company in 2024. That's my thought process.
Yeah.
That is my last odds and ends, sir. You have 4.
All right, so I got 2. One of them's old, and we'll start with that one. Apparently, Redfall's official Twitter was taken down briefly due to a, quote, copyright claim by the official copyright holder.
What?
Golden, yeah. Akin to DMCA takedowns, a lot of that stuff now is automated. So basically it'll just take a look and see what is it. I know Nintendo's one that's pretty well automated with their takedowns and copyright claims. Same sort of situation. They were just too aggressive and copyright claimed themselves.
They got.
Yeah, happens all the time. It was just perfect timing. Just perfect timing with all that shit going on.
Oh my god, man. They can't buy a win. This is terrible. It's terrible. I shouldn't. I know I shouldn't. And usually in these situations, I don't. I feel real sympathy for Arcane Austin because I really don't feel like it's them. I feel like they got done dirty by everybody around them, and now they're taking the heat for it. And I just...
Yeah, when you take a look at the last thing that Arcane Austin did before the acquisition, if I remember correctly, it was either Prey or that last Dishonored game.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those were received fairly well. Prey, unfortunately, I feel like was just a victim of timing.
They didn't sell super great, but they were critically well regarded.
Yeah, and when you take a look, I believe we talked about this last week even. You compare the graphics and just general UI, lighting, thing like that from what those games were compared to what was presented in Redfall. It really very well could have something to do with Big Daddy Microsoft standing over the shoulder.
I agree. And that's what I said. I think 100%. I think they were like, this game isn't ready. Microsoft was like, push it out. We'll take the hit. They pushed it out. They blamed it all on Arcane.
Yeah.
And Arcane can't say anything because it's still their game. I think they really got done dirty by their parent company. And if I was Arcane, I would certainly be regretting being acquired by Microsoft in this particular moment because I don't feel like for a second that they have had... I mean, did they produce a shitty game? Yes. And we don't know what happened behind closed doors. But it just, the way this is played out in the media, it really feels like they wouldn't have released a game like this if it weren't for Microsoft.
Yeah.
You look at their track record versus... what they've released under Microsoft, it's just a completely different... It's night and day, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Sorry. Go ahead.
And then the last one, one that I don't think anybody really didn't see coming. Hogwarts Legacy for the Switch has been delayed to November 2023.
Yeah.
Nearly a full year after the initial release. Just... cancel it. Just cancel it, man. Like, nobody is expecting these games to run on the Switch. Like, we talked about it very briefly when we touched on Tears of the Kingdom. At this point, the Switch hardware, it was already kind of underpowered as it was, but they have done amazing things with that hardware, even by leveraging game streaming. Like, they've done great things with it, but there's just some shit that just cannot be done. Like, either just let it be, or Nintendo, release a pro version of the Switch or whatever, updated hardware is going to be. This game, Hogwarts Legacy, already was a struggle for computers, like decently high-spec PCs. Even sometimes running on the Series X and the PS5. It kind of had a time. And even with game streaming, you think that it's going to make it just A-okay on the Switch? It's going to be a trash fire.
Well, and you remember Hitman when they did that on the Switch.
Exactly. Like,
and it was real buggy. Control had the same issues when they did it. Because they do it through streaming. That's how they do it. And then... you really, you can with the OLED now, which with the OLED I think it would probably be a better experience, but those things are on a Wi-Fi, so like you're streaming a huge game on a Wi-Fi on the Switch, it's not going to work out for you. So I will disagree. I think there are a lot of people out there who are demanding these things on the Switch because they like the Switch. There is a popularity there to the Switch. The Switch is very portable, and I think there are a lot of people, especially the more casual players, who don't necessarily understand, like we do, or the people who listen to this do, what exactly goes into putting it on Switch. Those people definitely are like, why isn't that on my console? You know, I think that there is a demand for it. It's just, yeah, there are certain games that I don't know if it's beneficial to put it on that, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, very much so. Like, yeah, I guess a point of clarification. Yeah, I'm sure there are some people who are wanting it to come to the Switch, but yeah, very much so. Like, it's just not super feasible.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right. Well, was that your last one?
That was the last one.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to wrap this thing up because I still got to edit it. We will be right back with the Pluggaroos.
Horrible Gaming Podcast.
All right, everybody. That brings us to the end of the show. The shameless self-promotion that comes with it. Neil, do you got anything special you want to plug?
I do. It just so happens that I do have a thing to plug, and it's something that we kind of plugged already and have been talking about for a while. But
and no one's gonna watch other than
and
us.
No one's gonna. No, you know what? No, I don't. I don't often like beg and plead for people to watch something or take a look at it. It's seriously, I think it is one of the most fun times that I have had doing one of the Let's Plays for the channel, just because what we go through is just absolute joy. I experienced it as joy. I don't think Zach found it very joyful.
Just so that everybody knows, the very first tutorial section from the opening to the firehouse, I could not pick up or shoot weapons.
It was just great. Absolute fantastic.
It is something else.
It is much in the way of a car fire to where you cannot look away. So I will bill it as such. Very much stupid shenanigans, and I almost feel like it's something that you could even listen to. You don't even necessarily need to watch in some cases.
I would actually recommend in some cases not watching it because the graphics get so bad.
The graphics get rough.
It hurts my
everything
eyes.
Gets rough. In fact, we all did not believe that things were happening, so much so that we had to stop the action, take pictures of screens, and send them to each other to prove that we were not bullshitting.
Yeah, that's 100% what happened. Everybody could see a gun, and I couldn't. It was just sitting there.
Ringing, shining endorsement. We were going to go with the 20th then, coming Saturday. And the first episode is going to be up this Saturday, the 20th. So go ahead and give that a watch.
Yes. Please do. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. Please do. This week, TTRPG stuff abound. We're back into Getting Over. Myself and Josh play our Wrestling Promoter Simulator tabletop sort of game. It's a lot of fun. Mondays at 1 p.m. If you can't see it, because that is a weird time, please watch it in the past. And then Wednesday night, Astral Drive, Episode 3 coming at you. Very excited about that. You guys are really enjoying that. We've definitely busted 30 views both times, so it's nice to see that you guys are enjoying us playing that game. On the video game front, I am still playing Grounded, and I'm actually in parts that I haven't been in before, and it's super exciting. Really enjoying that game. That game is a real win. A rare win. I mean, it's Obsidian. It's not a rare win. They win everything. But after post-launch, that game is absolutely amazing. Just a stunning game experience.
Not to be confused with a rare win, as in Rare the developer winning.
Right. Doing that Tuesday mornings at 11, doing Sifu Arenas, which is a lot of fun for my amateur hour, 9:30 on Tuesday nights. And then we got a lot of streams, a lot of Let's Plays going. Got a lot of Prelude to Divorce coming back at you. We've got the OMGMs still rolling on. Me and Jeremy now have a plan for what we're doing for the next couple of seasons. And yeah, it's really exciting. That's it, though. We're all done. And yeah, I will talk to you guys later. You guys can contact us on Facebook at OldManGamingDH, on Twitter at OldManGaming9. You can join our Discord. Links in the description below. Influence this and all of our shows from there. As long as you keep watching and listening, we'll keep making them. We'll see you guys next time.